Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and news from leaders across our industry. We are here on day one of Datacloud Global Congress 2025 in beautiful Cannes, France, and I am joined by Mike Nin, CEO of Inflect. Mike Wynn. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
It's, as I said, very first interview of the day and very first chance to talk to one of our great leaders of this entire conference. So I'd love to start the conversation with you. I know you spoke with JSA TV very recently at ITW. One of the big topics impacting our industry and really the world, global economy, is around tariffs. And I know you had some things to say on that. The conversation hasn't quieted down, but can you tell us a little bit more about your sort of what you're hearing?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. As always, glad to be back. The tariff conversation is definitely top of mind for many folks, especially in our industry where things like tariffs on steel, on hardware, and things like that are very high, and people are concerned and not totally confident in the positioning that they have, in particular with the U.S. So, being a U.S. citizen, I continue to hear the stories like, "What are you guys doing?" That sort of thing. But it's not, obviously it's an administration initiative. It continues to roil the market that we're in. I mean, I'm looking around at all the different component makers and all the data center companies, et cetera. To a T, everybody is still concerned about tariffs. The reactions are as you would expect. They're looking for places to build out where tariffs aren't a huge deal. So hopefully this thing resolves itself, but I just don't see it resolving itself anytime soon. The biggest issue is the lack of confidence. So the number one thing I hear is, when do you think this resolves itself, and can we trust that it will stay resolved? And for me, I can't say with conviction that it will.
Yeah, it's a long road ahead, right?
It is.
So where does our industry go from here? I think is the question.
From a practical perspective, what we have seen. So this is just what we've seen. There's no opinions. I'm just stating what we've seen with our projects. Our clients that were looking to invest in the U.S., build out large footprints, many of them have completely paused while the tariff thing resolves itself. At the very least, a lot of movement has gone towards Europe. We're scoping a lot in Asia as well, and then some of the emerging markets like Latin America. So what we're seeing is some of these large GPU farms, factories, as Jensen likes to call them, are now being placed outside of the U.S., where we were very close to getting many deals done in the last quarter or so in the U.S. Those are now shifting focus elsewhere. That doesn't mean that the U.S. is not seeing activity. We definitely still are, but it is softening. So that's our firsthand experience.
Yeah. So let's just take a moment then to just come in close to home to you with Inflect. So can you tell us what's on the horizon specifically for Inflect?
Okay, yeah. We are a global business, right? So we are a marketplace and advisory, global in scale. Our partners are all over the world. I spend my time traveling and meeting JSA in exotic places like Cannes and National Harbor, places like that. But we are not concerned as a company because we have options everywhere. What we are just reacting to is the reality of geopolitical situations, economic, what I'd call conflict, if you want to call it that way. For us, it's no different. I think in a lot of ways, kind of like back in the downturn of 07, 08, or crypto winter, or any of these situations where there's a lot of activity, the pandemic, for instance, where people are looking for different ways of doing things, Inflect is there. So ironically, it's actually good for us.
Yeah.
It's good for our partners, and so.
Yeah. You have a great outlook on it. So,
what are you going to do?
Right. True. Good point. Yeah. And, I really appreciate you coming in. I know, as we said, it's early in the morning, day one here. And thank you for being our first guest of the show. Yeah. And, again, we saw you at ITW. I'm sure we'll see you again soon in the future. We always look forward to it.
Will.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to JSA TV, where we'll be coming to you today live all day long with talking to leaders from across our industry. Until next time. Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress here in beautiful Cannes, France. And it's day one and a half, I guess, if you include yesterday. First day of the show, and I'm pleased to be joined by Tom Mertz, who's the COO of T5 Data Centers. Welcome, Tom.
Yeah, thank you so much. Glad to be here in beautiful Cannes, France. Yeah.
It is. I mean, we're fairly fortunate, I
we
think,
are very
to be here.
fortunate.
But also, what a great show! It's so busy already. There's so many great folks here, and let's talk specifically about T5. That's what we're here to talk about. I know that a year ago we chatted a fair bit, I think, about some of the plans for T5 data centers and your opportunities for growth and scaling the organization. A lot of that has already happened. It continues to happen. Tell us about that. How do you maintain this momentum that you have going?
Well, I mean, we're riding the momentum with the rest of the industry, so I think that we've done a good job with keeping up with that. But when we talked a year ago, we've quadrupled the size of our services business. We've significantly grown on the development side. Our employee base has gone more than doubled during that time period, and so it's challenging, but it's fun. But our whole purpose really is to make sure that we maintain the three businesses under the one T5 umbrella, which for us is development, construction, and operations. And so each one of those businesses interact with each other. Each one of them are critical to our clients, and really what we're trying to do is make sure we sell the total solution to our customers.
Yeah, it's always nice to hear from you. You keep that focus. You have what your mission is, what you're focused on, and you continue to excel at it. It's always great to hear that from you. And it's been recognized, right? I think that you just received the Danish Data Center Industry Awards for Operations Team of the Year.
Very, very
what does that mean to you? Tell us.
I mean, very, very proud of that. That team in Denmark has done a phenomenal job. We've grown there really rapidly. We now have 2 customers, over 75 employees, and they've done a fantastic job. They're great leaders in our company, not just in Denmark, but as well as in the company. We also had a Young Leader Award in that site, and one of the 2 sites over there. And so I'm very proud of that team. Trying for us to integrate their culture into our corporate culture, we thought would be challenging. They've done a great job of jumping right in and being a part of that T5 culture, but then bringing their own twist, which really involves their country and what they have to do to get the job done. So it's been a unique experience growing with them. I was just there. Pete Marin, our CEO, and I just went to go visit them several weeks ago and had a little celebratory dinner with them, and excited for that continued growth over there.
Nice. It's nice to see the global growth, and there's so much learning that happens, as you said, from adopting everything they know and can bring to your team, but so much that obviously you can bring to them. So that's fantastic. So, we only had a few minutes here. It always feels like, these conversations are so quick, but is there anything else, sort of final things you want to share with us before we let you go and enjoy the rest of the show?
Yeah, look, I just want to make sure everybody understands that the whole 3 business model that we have, we're development business. We continue to accelerate and grow. Really, it's going to be, our focus there is 5 1 gigawatt campuses in the United States, 1 here in Europe. We want to do a gigawatt here in Europe. It's going to be challenging to find a gigawatt of power here, but that's what the focus is on our development team. Yeah. Construction, we continue to focus on supporting the industry. We'll do about $1 billion in revenue in construction this year, so we have a pretty sizable construction business, and most of that is not supporting T5 development. That's with third-party developers or hyperscalers. And then our operations team continues to grow, and we're over 400 people strong and operating 60 data centers in Europe and the U.S. right now. So it's we're very focused on maintaining that growth and maintaining our culture, and we're proud of that.
Yeah. It's been so amazing to watch the growth at T5 Data Centers. We continue to enjoy hearing the updates. We'll look forward to more this time next year and probably before. But thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate you coming to chat with us. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to JSA TV, where we'll continue to come to you live today from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress. Until then, stay tuned. Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025 in beautiful Cannes, France. I'm Barb Mitchell, and I'm joined today by Robert Usher, who's the director of Hanley Automation. I think it might be nice to just introduce you or let you introduce yourself for a second. Tell us a little bit about Hanley Automation, if you
Well,
don't
let's start
mind.
with me and move on to Hanley Automation.
Okay.
Because really, I'm the most
Well,
important person.
you are our guest.
Absolutely.
Yes, the
Well,
star
as I
of the
said
show.
to you, Barb, I have a face made for radio. So when we actually start a conversation like this, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Hanley Automation, a little bit about me, and then we go back to Cannes because what a beautiful venue. It's
Yeah.
absolutely stunning, isn't it?
Stunning.
Absolutely gorgeous. And if anybody is thinking about taking a trip to Cannes, I can highly endorse it. It's a fabulous venue. Everything's within a very, very short space. And people are just so friendly here, aren't they?
Yeah,
Absolutely
I
wonderful.
agree. I've been having that conversation over the last couple of days with folks. This event has moved to this venue. Just last year was the first year, second year here, and it seems like it's exploded since then. It was a great show before. It's even better now. There's so many opportunities for people to connect and network, and so many great,
Absolutely right.
companies
Yeah.
that
I
are
mean,
here.
Monte Carlo it sounds like a fantastic venue. You have everything going on, the Crown Prince of Monaco, all that
Yeah.
kind of glamour. But it was actually such a difficult venue to access, whereas everything is here on the doorstep in Cannes.
Yeah.
You walk out the door, you've got beaches, boats, what's not to love. It's
Yeah, and
absolutely
about
fabulous.
100 restaurants that people can
Absolutely.
gather at to meet, and lots of opportunities.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
the sun is shining, and the water is glistening, and we're all here talking to one another.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yes.
So I'll give you the 30-second intro if you like. Hanley Automation is a distributor for automation products that's based in Ireland, both north and south, and we've been working with our partner Rockwell Automation for 30 years. So we're a long time doing this, but we're the only distributor that actively works with everybody in the data center industry. And it's a little bit of a niche spot in many ways, although looking at the business and the amount of money that's been fueled into data centers, it's a global reach now. It's not just a local Irish kind of, how are you doing yourself kind of business that it once was. So that's what we do.
And I know one of the areas that's obviously of interest to you is liquid cooling. It's something that's on the rise given the growth of the density of
Sure.
compute these days. And so talk about how you're advising people to best use this.
So we're a non-combatant in liquid cooling. We don't actually sell a liquid cooling product. But what we have, or what I particularly have, what we've done at Hanley Automation is we've spent a long time working with partners, OEMs, end users in the cooling area. It's all been air. And when liquid cooling was being presented to the data center industry, people got a bit nervous because they didn't understand what was actually required. There was a huge amount of effort to try and become more sustainable with air cooling. And when liquid cooling came, it presented people with almost a bifurcation in decisions. Should we still go air cooling? Should we go liquid cooling? And really what it is the chip manufacturers are the ones who are dictating the pace and dictating the actual need as they bring out more powerful chips, as they actually come to the market with a more and more powerful chip. It's they who will dictate whether or not you need to use liquid cooling. But the data center industry is a very, very cautious, sensible industry in many ways. They say they're very happy to innovate as long as that innovation has been around for 20 years.
Right.
And that's what's given them the bit of difficulty when it comes to liquid cooling. So I started a podcast on liquid cooling because I wanted to demystify a number of the conversations and help people to make decisions around liquid cooling. Because really, when people make a design change or people want to implement liquid cooling, it's not for now, it's going to be for 10 years, 15
Right.
years. And that's a very difficult time to be able to take out a crystal ball and say, have I got enough liquid
Especially
cooling?
things are changing so
Massively,
quickly.
absolutely massively.
Yeah.
So that's why we actually get involved with liquid cooling, and that's what we try to do is we try to bring all of the partners together. We try to explain exactly what's required, or at least give them some light as to how the industry might approach the task of dismantling liquid cooling and bringing it back to bare principles. And it's very, very simple in more ways than one, but people have to make decisions, and that's where the difficulty comes.
Now, you have the opportunity to talk about this, I think, a fair bit, right, with your podcast, Cooling Data Center Podcast. Is that right?
That's absolutely
So
it.
tell us a little bit, give us some highlights of what is
Highlights.
discussed
Wow,
on there.
Well, absolutely. I got I've been very fortunate to have some wonderfully interesting people to talk to. These people are people who've been in the industry for a long time, people who actually spend their every day, all of the hours of every day, trying to actually divine what's coming next. And they're wonderfully interesting people. They're people just like you and I. They've got, they're very accessible, and that's one of the things I really love about them in this industry. They're extremely accessible.
Yeah.
They've been more than generous with their time, and they share their insights with people on the podcast. And really, every one of them brings something new to the table, whether it's talking about the chip designs, whether it's talking about the direct chip liquid cooling, whether you're looking at immersion cooling, things like that. There's a huge number of people who have brought their expertise absolutely free, gratis, there's no charge, and they're telling this to me in a conversation that's very, very accessible. Whether you're on the car on the way home or whether you're traveling on a plane, I believe I'm a perfect cure for insomnia. If you're not able to sleep, I can recommend my podcast.
Yeah, that's great. We'll make sure everyone tunes into the Cooling Data Center podcast. My last question for you, and I think this is something that a lot of people are thinking about when things like AI, of course, everyone's talking about AI, but just the massive, we were talking just earlier about the growth of workloads and density of compute. How do you do this? How do you advise people to manage this while still thinking about things like sustainability and energy efficiency?
So if you want to deploy liquid cooling in an existing data center, it's not going to be the most sustainable option. You're going to have much higher, we call them PUE figures, because you've got to deploy the same infrastructure hardware as you've got for air cooling. So it's going to be a very, very difficult thing to be able to deploy sustainably, shall we say, because you've got to provide air cooling and liquid cooling, which means your PUE can't be just driven down.
Right.
But one of the things that I would say to people is that don't listen to the hype. There's a lot of hype going on. A lot of people are having conversations about liquid cooling. I see it all of the time. I see it published all of the time. And the truth is actually stranger than fiction. I don't believe that people have found the magic cure for liquid cooling just yet. No matter what you want to believe, it's not a magic, it's not a one size cures all. Really what you've got to do is take a step back and try and understand what it is you're trying to provide the cooling for. Are you doing cloud computing? Are you doing high performance computing? Are you looking at cryptocurrency, for example, crypto mining? Or really are you looking for AI? And how much of your data center do you want to give over to AI? And I think that if we just start having conversations that are more tangible, a little bit more basic, I think we'll actually find that we can slow down to move faster. It's a very, very interesting topic.
It is interesting, and it's hard, and I know a lot of people are trying to tackle this. And
absolutely.
All the smartest minds in the world, I think, are working
including
on
you
this. Like you and I. Exactly. And what a great way to end this. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Much appreciated.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to JSA TV. Stay tuned as we continue to come to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025.
Hi everyone, this is Sindhu Sharma. I'm head ESG for Nestra by Airtel. We are largest India network of data centers in India. Having presence across 120 odd locations in India. We have initiated this ESG function a few years back, and we are driving and to make sure that we'll take all the steps to make our data centers green. Sure. The chapter, deals into the realm of the green data centers, addressing the imperative of balancing technologies expansion with environmental responsibility. It emphasizes the necessity of transitional towards the sustainable practices to mitigate the environmental impact of data centers. We have talked about few strategies, including optimizing the energy efficient infrastructure, harnessing renewable energy sources, overcoming the challenges such as high initial cost and legacy infrastructure. We have also incorporated few case studies where we highlight how successful implementation eventually help the organization to bring all those sustainability initiatives within the business and demonstrate the successful benefits, including cost reduction as well as decreased carbon emissions. Sure. So being involved with the Green Data Board was an opportunity to contribute a critical conversation about sustainability in this whole data center space. So I saw this as a chance to share insights and strategies for reducing the ecological footprint of data centers. It not only aligns with my commitment, also my company's commitment to promote responsible technology use and advancing efforts towards a more sustainable future. Sure. So I'm very closely watching the sustainable supply chain space, where I see, with the increase in the consumer demand for sustainable product and highlighting the awareness of the environmental impact of the product and shipping goods, I believe this is the space where new innovation and technology need to be dropped. This may include using of more eco-friendly packaging or protection material, or reducing the waste, as well as human efforts while transportation and a safe working environment. So this is a space I'm really following from last 2 to 3 years. I really believe that a whole lot of job is really pending here, and I believe few technological interventions will come in the future.
Hi, I'm Scott Salandi-Dufour, one of the co-founders of LiquidStar. At LiquidStar, we make micro data centers that have their own electricity, water, and internet built in, and we place them in emerging market rural areas where we sell the excess electricity, water, and internet to the locals that live around the waypoint at a discount. Yeah, so our chapter is about how data centers can actually be used to solve potentially UN SDG 6, people not having access to water, and UN SDG 7, people not having access to electricity, by thinking outside of the box and placing them, as I mentioned in the introduction, in emerging market rural areas, these micro data centers that are powered by solar. So really, the chapter just kind of goes into how we sort of came to the idea, then also some of the trials and tribulations of being an early stage startup relying on a brand new technology like Starlink, and what are some of the early outcomes of our initial prototypes and projects. And finally, the most important is how we see this scaling up and what this will look like in the future. So the main reason that I wanted to be involved is that I noticed very early on that there was a trend that data centers use a ton of electricity. And really, at the same time, just thinking about how in the past, a lot of the resources in a place like Africa have been kind of just taken and they haven't really gotten the value. I think I was already seeing that we're in the early stages of that, especially when you hear people say that information is the new oil, right? So, or digital information is the new oil. So I really wanted to get involved with this book to help kind of bring attention to the fact that we can't repeat the same mistakes of the last 100 years, where we're just extracting these resources and not providing anything back. And I also wanted to kind of bring attention to the fact, using the Greener Data platform, that actually, if we think creatively and outside the box, we can solve multiple problems more profitably by in a way taking advantage of the lack of electricity, water, and internet access that's in the continent of Africa. Well, from my previous answers, it's probably obvious I'm really following the sustainability of data centers very closely, in particular AI and training, because there's a lot of articles that have come out about
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025 here in beautiful Cannes, France. We're speaking with leaders across the digital infrastructure industry about all things new and innovative and on trend. And I'm very pleased to be joined today by Karen Petersburg, who's the Vice President of Development and Construction for Powerhouse Data Centers. And I wanted to start there a little bit just about Powerhouse, and if you can tell us a little bit about the organization. I know that you're focused on building at scale and speed, and I think that's an important place to start.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Powerhouse is a relatively new brand. However, American Real Estate Partners, our main company, has been around for 22 years. And so we've really been focusing on the data center vertical about 4 years ago. And what we do is look to purchase land that has power, it has fiber, it has water, everything that our tenants need. And we also look and see where the tenants are, and we try to triangulate the best sites. And then we purpose build our spec data centers to help facilitate whatever the tenant wants. So we have spec, but then we'll change the design to allow the tenants to come in and do what they need to do on the inside. So we're typically a core and shell builder in terms of a product, but we also will do turnkey. We have that capability in-house. And so when we talk about scale, we have 6 gigawatts in the pipeline right now between what's under construction and in development, and that we've actually bought and sold the land for. So we've got a lot going on within 4 years, and our pipeline reaches all the way out to 2028 now. The stuff that people are looking for, and what we've seen, at least in this conference so far, is that a lot of the demand signals are by 2026, tenants want to have power, and a lot of that has already been taken up. And so we're really trying to help the customers project out further, so that way when they are looking for these large amounts of power, that we have something available for them. So it's been really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, amazing the work that you're doing, and so much growth in the industry as a whole, but obviously with Powerhouse. So, one of the things that we talk about a lot as an industry, it gets discussed, and I believe actually you're speaking tomorrow about this on a panel, is how on earth do we do this? Where are the people? Right,
and it's a scary thought, because with AI and the demand that's coming down the pike, we really don't have the people to support the growth. And what we're seeing with the industry is that there's a lot of people from other verticals coming in trying to help us grow, but in terms of understanding what a data center is and how it works, it's specialty, it's technical, it's different. And so there's a lot of training that has to go on. And then, of course, there's the other half of that, which is our ecosystem, which all the skilled trades and labor that we need. And there's just not enough. And so it's really incumbent upon us as the data center industry to do our part to try to help build that up. And so I'm really looking forward to the panel to talk to how that can work and what we can do to support the needs of our industry.
And I think one of the, first of all, I'll be interested, I want to come to your panel and hear all about that. And I think one of the sort of next steps of that is creating the purview of data centers as critical infrastructure as a viable career path for young folks, right? So is that something that you're
100%? I think what happens is that the public perception has been, it doesn't really know the truth about the sustainability aspects and what we actually do as an industry. And so we get a bad rap, and we really need to get and reach out to the younger generation. And we're talking middle school, elementary school, because if we can reach them and their parents and their teachers, and we start that young, then they'll learn how viable as a career path this is. I mean, not only skilled trade jobs, you can make so much money, like 6 figures. People don't know that. So if you're not interested in going to college, obviously you have another pathway that you can go that people just don't know about. So our job really truly is is more of an outreach to be more vocal and to start really talking to people and getting them to understand what is available as far as a career pathway here.
Yeah. So. There's so many opportunities. I try and tell every young person I talk to about it, but another thing that you touch on, which we don't hear as much about, is support around mental health. I mean, it's as much as we talk about all these great opportunities and the need for more people, there is stress that comes with it. There's a lot of demands.
100%. And I mean, it's a very scary time right now. Everybody is so busy. The people who are active in the industry right now are taxed. They are stressed. They are overburdened. We've got a lot going on. and mental health isn't talked about, and it's definitely important on the job site, but in the office too. And I think one of the things that we can always think to do is just try to keep that work-life balance, try to have open conversations to make sure, when you see your friends and your colleagues overworked, try to see how you can help, how you can support. Remember the human element. That's the most important, is just always remember that we're at the base of everything, human beings. And if we can reach that and connect as people, then magic happens. So there's a lot to do with mental health, but
Yeah. It's great to know that you're thinking about that and focused on it and have
Yeah.
initiatives in place. And
yeah, one thing too with that, we didn't talk too much about what Powerhouse does as a program, but we really do with our sustainability program. We care about community engagement, and so every project we have, we work to figure out what we can do within the community and what the community needs. And so the project teams actually figure out like what is it that they care about, what is it that the community needs, and they develop programs that will support the community. And every single project right now, the theme is workforce development. Everybody wants to get in. How can we help build the workforce? And so as part of that, we've done things like started ACE mentoring programs. We've started 7x24 chapters. We've definitely gone into local community colleges to teach. But on the flip side of that is the worker experience. And this goes into the mental health. This goes into the culture of the work itself. And we want our craft workers and everybody who's on our job site to leave happier than they came. We really care that they're having a good worker experience. There's a company, I don't want to just blast out and start talking about companies and be some sort of PR for them, but there's a company out there that will actually monitor the workers' mental health and provide reports. And so we're looking to work with them so that they can come on and make sure that the craft workers, we're doing what we say we're going to do. And so we'll get that feedback. We'll be able to course correct. So that way when the workers are leaving, they're not only safe, but they feel happy. And so it's just, I could go on and on about the fact that we have one life to live and we need to make sure we're happy because, what else are you going to do, right?
100%.
Like, it's so important.
Yeah, you're so right. The work that we do is gratifying, but it needs to also be done in a way that allows people to balance the rest of their lives and do so and be satisfied in all aspects.
Exactly.
Right?
You find that when people are really happy and they're passionate and they're really connected to the job, they'll do great things. And that's what we want to do. We want to facilitate greatness. We want people to be happy, and we want this industry just to be the best it can be. So.
Yeah. What a great way to end this conversation. Karen, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Always a pleasure
Yes.
to chat with you. Look forward to coming to your panel tomorrow and hearing a little bit more about this. So, and good luck with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the show. I'm sure it's a busy week for you and lots
of
planned.
meetings.
Yeah. But thank you. Thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to come speak with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in today to JSA TV. Stay tuned as we continue to bring stories from leaders across the digital infrastructure industry. Until next time. Everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we are coming to today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025 here in beautiful Cannes, France. And we're talking to leaders across the digital infrastructure industry about the latest stories, trends, and innovations impacting our industry. I'm very pleased to be joined by Brittany Miller, who's the SVP of Construction and Infrastructure Development for NTT Global Data Centers. Brittany, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
How's the show going so far?
It's good.
Yeah,
it's a good show.
It is a great show. It's busy. It's a lot of things happening. A lot of great conversations, and I'm sure a lot of great conversations happening with you and your team at NTT. I know there's a lot in the pipeline for you.
Yeah.
I understand that you have plans to invest over $10 billion. Is that right?
Yeah.
$10 billion through to 2027.
Yeah.
That's a significant investment. What's driving that?
I think it's just, the overall market, right? We're still seeing cloud and AI demand and reacting to that globally. We've made last year publicly, I think we announced about $1 billion in different markets across the globe, from Japan to the States to Europe. And so we're really investing heavily and building, quite a bit all over the world.
Yeah. The industry is just continues to grow, and you're supporting that. I know that there's a lot of, the demands, of course, for AI and high performance computing are driving a lot of that. The demand for new facilities, new infrastructure. How are you keeping up to that, and how are you adapting that?
Yeah.
The needs.
So, it's a bit interesting in our industry. I don't think we've seen such a large shift. I would say generally our designs were very standard for the last 10 years.
Right.
In the last couple of years, it's been a huge shift, particularly this year. We've seen densities of over 100, right, kilowatts and liquid cooling. So just in the States, we've deployed over 100 megawatts of liquid cooling. And then we also have been really focused on our technology roadmap and staying ahead of it and offering kind of different solutions, whether it's cloud-based or kind of a high-density AI solution, because we're seeing our customers still need that flexibility in their zones as they grow. And so that's kind of what we're doing to stay ahead of the roadmap.
And with all of this development, it's putting a lot of pressure, I think, on supply chain, right? How are you managing that pressure while continuing? Obviously, you have a lot of momentum and a lot of growth plans. How are you balancing those two pressures?
Yeah, I would say, I think there's a couple differentiators for us, right? We're kind of the third largest globally, so we have that global footprint pretty much in every market. And so one of the things that we're doing with our kind of standard designs is that really enables our supply chain to get prepared years in advance and us to be quite nimble across the globe. So we have quite a mature supply chain team that we order years and years in advance,
right,
and then are able to allocate things differently. And getting ahead of what is coming is key to that, right? Because it may not be the same equipment, and it may not be the same things that we're ordering in the future.
And things are changing so quickly, that you have to.
Yeah.
The crystal ball comes in handy,
a little bit,
right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share? Any highlights? Anything you're looking forward to? Conversations over the upcoming week here?
Yeah, it's a great show. I'm speaking about an hour on supply chain and particularly,
right,
and kind of the challenges around that. Talking a little bit on that panel around construction, particularly like the labor that I don't think gets talked about, and the challenges across different emerging markets and the maturity of those. So I'm excited to talk about that. You can see a lot of AI, liquid cooling, different technologies, different companies being introduced. So that will be good. And then Doug is now, our CEO, is speaking about some of the kind of upcoming things we have. So it's going to be a great conference, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think you hit on all the top topics there. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you for, I know it's a really, really busy conference, so we really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your time to come chat with us. Yeah. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in again to JSA TV. Keep tuning in today as we bring stories and news and updates from leaders across the digital infrastructure industry. Until next time, stay tuned.
Scott Willis. I'm the president and CEO of DartPoints, and we are a data center operator. We're actually headquartered in Dallas, Texas, and we've got 11 data center locations throughout the Midwest, Southeast, and South Central region. Yeah. So the key takeaways for the chapter, I was so excited to be able to participate in this project. I mean, first and foremost, sustainability is one of the core values that we have here at DartPoints. So this is not only important to us from a as we evolve as a data center operator, but it's truly important to us as a company. That we contribute as we think about the impacts that our business has on the environment and how we can always look to improve that and be more competitive. But the title of my chapter is really the interconnect domain between finance, sustainability, and innovation. And I was so excited to get that as our title because it really covers the entire ecosystem end to end as it relates to the data center sector and the impacts that the data center sector is having on the environment. And really, the four key takeaways that I would identify in our chapter are really first and foremost is growth that the sector is experiencing. When you think about data demand and you think about where data centers sit in the ecosystem, right? We're at the core of what drives that data demand, not only today, but these enormous future projections, right? The ecosystems that we create in our facilities are really the drivers that enable all that. So that's one, right? How sustainable is that going forward, and what are the impacts on the environment, given just the enormous power demand that our ecosystems create, and particularly when you think about the tailwinds of AI and machine learning type opportunities, that demand only exponentially grows. The second point, really in our chapter, is really about capital. Right? We're a business that requires an enormous amount of capital to continue to grow. We are a capital intensive business. And the chapter that we were able to participate in really addresses the impact of capital coming into the industry, the impact of sustainability, and particularly around the new entrants of capital coming into the market and how they want to focus capital being deployed in a very sustainable way. And so we really address that. I'm excited about the impacts that's having on the industry. The third one is innovation, right? That's what DartPoints is all about. We consider ourselves really to be thought leaders in the industry, right? We want to be perceived as innovators. When you think about sustainability, and I mentioned the power demand in the industry, generally people tend to just kind of think about alternative power sources, whether that's wind or whether it's other types of power solutions that are being talked about. But when you really understand what's going on within the data center ecosystem, that's just one component, right? Design, processes, tools, procedures, technology, right? How you become very efficient through advanced technology and innovation. All of that end-to-end ecosystem really comes into play when you begin to think about sustainability within the data center sector, and how do you really maximize the benefit that we can have on the environment. And then, of course, the last one of the key learning is the customer, right? That is clearly an environment where if you want to be relevant as a data center provider, not only today, but in the future, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you have to evolve your thinking, the way we build our platforms, the way we deploy our platforms, all has to have a mindset of sustainability, because customers today, whether you're engaging in a prospective discussion as they look at you as a potential partner, or they're a customer in your existing environment, they're demanding solutions that are environmentally friendly. And if
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025 in beautiful Cannes, France, and speaking with leaders across the digital infrastructure industry who are telling us all sorts of great news and stories and innovations. I'm very pleased to be joined by Benjamin Van Lent, who's the Sales Director, Solutions and Mega Projects Europe.
Yes, correct.
For Watts Water. Thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate having you here. Let's start a little bit by you telling us a little bit about your organization.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I've been working for Watts quite a long time, which is a fantastic company. We have lots of products. We're a global company. It's very exciting to be here with all these major companies, and especially this rapidly evolving business.
Yes.
And everybody wants to be part of this, as we do as well.
Yeah.
And I think we can bring a lot of contribution to this business.
Yeah.
So we have lots of innovative products, and I will talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
That's
and it's, I mean, what a great show to be at.
Yes.
You know, it feels like kind of the who's who of the industry a little bit, right? Everyone, it's very busy. A lot of great companies here, a lot of great organizations. You, your company at Watts, you have some exciting news this week. I think you're bringing a new product to market. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
perfect
correct.
timing for it. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, we're very delighted to launch our new product range, which are liquid cooling, stainless steel products for the liquid cooling, high performance products. And we're very excited. We officially launched this today. So we have everybody's coming to the stand, looking at the products. I also wanted to say that it's fantastic to be here with all those different companies, and it's like one big family.
Yeah.
And, we
Feels
talk
like
a
that.
lot. It's also because of them that we are able to develop these products, because we
Yes.
listen to their needs,
Right.
and then we try to bring something on the market which meets their expectations, actually.
Yeah, it is. I always say that actually. It's such a massive industry in impact, but it does feel like
Yes.
a family coming together
Yes.
to provide
Yeah,
solutions.
I agree.
Really to the world, to
Yes.
global economies, and to people, and to communities, and everything. Let's talk a bit. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but I want to talk about just how this product that you brought to market. First of all, it's, I think, very timely that we're speaking to you today. You've just launched this product. And it's also timely that you're bringing it to market, considering the great demand that AI and high density computing have brought to the industry. How do these two things align?
Yes, actually, AI is, as I said, it's growing rapidly. It will never stop. We all
No.
know that.
Yeah.
Data is required, and we've been talking to a lot of these OEM manufacturers in the business, CDU manufacturers, and they need the best products because they need efficient systems to respond to that needs. So what we did is when we started listening to them, and as I said, we started developing products that could actually bring or help making sure they have efficient systems to respond to this rapid growth. And that's why we developed those liquid cooling products, which are high performing products. They are space saving. If you look around here, you will see a lot of these CDU manufacturers, and they all bring their own systems. And
Right.
we have products that goes into these systems.
Wow. Yeah, that's well, and so let's jump back to that. I mean, you know, talking about all the different folks that you can work with to support, but also collaborate with,
Yes.
and I think that's so important.
Yes,
You know, for the growth of the industry as a whole.
correct.
How does collaboration? How do you factor that into the work that you're doing?
Actually, it's for me collaboration. It's not only collaboration. It's like building something together. Because, as I said, and we all know that it's such an exciting business, and it's growing tremendously fast. And when we say collaborate, is okay. Let's work together. Let's think about a solution. Be innovative. Bring an efficient system on the market, and that therefore we collaborate with all different, let's say, different levels in the business. Could be an operator, could be a consultant, an engineer, and then we put our heads together, and we together we come with a solution, as I said, to respond to the needs of this fast-growing business.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share with us? I mean, I know these conversations always go so quickly, and I know we only have a few minutes,
Okay.
and you have to get on with all of the great things you have planned for the rest of the show. Any highlights that you want to share? What are you most looking forward to for the remainder of the week here?
Actually, it's the feeling I have here is it's, as I said, it's like one big family.
Yeah.
There's a lot of events. It's fantastic. You meet a lot of interesting people. You learn a lot.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example, we have our new products here, and there was an engineer talking to us, and he gave us a tip. We didn't know, so we're already in touch with our R&D.
Oh, wow,
department.
really?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Just to give you an idea. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Meeting all those fantastic people with all those fantastic ideas, and bring something to this business.
Yeah,
That's it.
amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
No, you're
Really,
welcome.
really appreciate
Thank you
you
for
taking a few
having me.
minutes out of your busy week,
Yes.
and congratulations on the launch of your new product.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to JSA TV, where we will continue to come to you live today from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress. Until next time. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025. We're speaking with leaders across our industry about all of the latest stories, news, and trends impacting digital infrastructure. I'm Barb Mitchell, and I'm very pleased to be joined today by Matt Sanderson, who's the CCO of Leftell Mine Data Centers. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we were saying it's been I think maybe a year or two since we last spoke, and I'm very excited to hear what has been transpiring, what is new with Leftell. But first, if you wouldn't mind just telling our viewers a little bit about your organization.
Yeah, sure. So Leftell Mine Data Centers, we're a co-location facility out of Norway, and we're a wholesale facility. We are been around for 7-8 years with live environments, and currently we're looking to expand to other locations in Norway, but also outside Norway. And we like to think of us as one of the leading co-location facilities in the Nordics.
Oh wow, that's amazing. It's a great region for data centers for a lot of reasons. But let's talk about. I'll let you tell that story. Let's talk about how you're positioning. I know that a big conversation that's gone outside of our industry now is around AI, of course, but within our industry, we're talking about the impacts of that. And so how do you keep up with the capacity demands for AI and high capacity computing?
Sure. Yeah, we're talking about AI factories, right? And currently we're deploying AI factories, 10 megawatt clusters, 130 kilowatt per rack, which is the current AI factories.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is that we're together with clients, the OEMs, leading OEMs, and also NVIDIA. We're talking about how is this going to develop for the future. And we're seeing that the design of these factories are rapidly changing. We're seeing that the densities are going up. We're looking at 300, 600, and later kilowatt per rack, and later 1 megawatt per rack, which is dramatically changing what we're doing. But we're also talking about the sizing of them. They're going into skids, 3 by 3 meters, 6 meters long, 35,000 pounds, put them into the white space, and how can we do that? So together with the leading OEMs and NVIDIA, we're talking about how we can cater for that in the future, how we change our design already now. We have clients moving in with 15 plus 5 years. How can our current design fit future hardware deployments? So we're doing quite a lot in the design work, but at the same time, we're also looking how we can cater with that with our backbone infrastructure and go to those densities. And we're quite lucky in the Leftell Mine Data Center having cold water as an asset for doing so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of advantages, as I
A lot
said.
of advantages, yeah,
That's right.
course,
But so let's talk about that a little bit more. As you start to think about how the capacity needs to be deployed, you mentioned a little bit about that. What's the industry talking about in terms of market trends?
Yeah. There's so many trends, but if you look at the major market segment, which is AI, high density, they're large clusters. So we're talking about, a lot of power. The trend is to go to where the power is produced. I mean, we see the big ones doing that. Of course, you need to have parts of the capacities within the cities close to the customer, but the training models and everything as close as possible to the power production. We also see that sustainability is still, even if some countries are trying to remove them a little bit from that perspective, we're still seeing that it's important. So we believe that efficiency, new cost models, sustainability, and to where the power is produced is driving a lot of the trends within what we focus on, which is HPC or AI or high density workloads. Right. So that's what we're doing, or that we're taking in consideration for our strategies, at least.
The other thing that I think is a factor right now is, there's a bit of a race to have this infrastructure built out, right? And so speed to market becomes a competitive advantage. How are you managing that?
So we're trying to do what we can. I mean, we just attended a panel upstairs with Google and with the CoreWeave and Microsoft, and they say, time to market, help us. We need to go quicker and it needs to be more efficient. So what we're doing is that we're trying to pre-build as much as possible. We're doing the backbone of the infrastructure is laid out, and then we modularly add housing solutions and designs to that so that we reduce time to market. And we even pre-build parts of this so that you, to what extent, can fit all designs, and then we wait with the last part until the design is actually set together with the clients. That reduces the time to market substantially. But then we also, when expanding to other sites, we look on how can we do the same thing there, and how can we really help our clients to maneuver in this very difficult world for them.
Yeah. It is difficult, and there's, like we've been saying, there's just so much changing so quickly and so much demand now, but sort of with a thought to the future. So when you see, we're sort of, we only had a few minutes here, and I want to make sure that you have a chance to tell us anything else, what are the big things that you're hoping to discuss with people this week throughout the conference?
For us, it's about, it's a common challenge we all have. NVIDIA is kind of driving the market with shorter lead times, new versions.
Right.
And how can we, together as an ecosystem around that, produce shorter time to market, stay in tune with what's coming in design? And we're working with a lot of our suppliers, the OEMs, NVIDIA itself, and we're working on how can we together make sure that we have oil in the machinery. And that is our constant dialogue currently. And then we're hoping to do the parts of that here, but also we're meeting a few end clients, of course, which is potential clients, which is important for us. So that, but it's a great show, and we're already having a good time here.
And there is so much collaboration, and it's so important. And it's an ecosystem. It takes a village, right? And everyone is working towards ultimately similar ends. So it's great to hear that you have such great collaboration already happening and so much work happening in your centers in Norway and more to come, I'm sure. Yeah, so thank you so much for taking the time today to speak with us.
Nice.
We appreciate it.
Okay.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to JSA TV, where we continue to come to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress. Until next time, stay tuned.
Pete Empey, U.S. Army Corporal. I was a microwave communications specialist in the military, and it really gave me the foundation to work in the telecom industry, dealing with infrastructure. Certainly would not be here without the start in the military. The future of digital infrastructure is it's increasing at an amazing rate, and I see that it will continue. And to have the experience that the veterans have of working on it real time in the military, and the military itself helping the civilians navigate through what's coming in the future is extremely valuable.
My name is Scott Robert DeWeese. I'm a former Army captain in the Air Defense Artillery. Well, one thing that the military teaches its members is how to make decisions. And regardless of what area or arena that you get into, whether it be telecommunications or some other technical field, military folks bring a lot of leadership and the ability to make decisions to any organization that they join. Well, I think that military veterans and military folks in general play a big part in shaping all of America's future, but in particular in our space here in telecommunications and the digital space. There are so many good veterans out there that are branched in the Signal Corps, military intelligence, air defense artillery like I was. It's a highly technical, skilled branch that's coupled with the ability to make decisions, the ability to lead in some of those formal training events and training systems that enable them to not only be technically proficient, but also to lead in an organization.
Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan LaPolice, CE2, United States Navy Seabees. My military background has significantly shaped how I approach the high-stakes, complex environment of digital infrastructure. In the military, I learned the importance of discipline, situational awareness, and precise planning, all of which translate really well to this field. I approach projects with a mission-critical mindset, understanding that attention to detail and rigorous standards are essential when dealing with the systems that support critical infrastructure. Additionally, the military instilled a sense of adaptability in fast-paced, evolving conditions, which is invaluable in digital infrastructure where technological advancements and client needs are constantly shifting. The future of digital infrastructure will likely center on enhanced resilience, sustainability.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025. We're in beautiful Cannes, France. I'm Barb Mitchell, and I'm pleased to be joined by Jason Walker, who's the Senior Vice President of Strategic Development at DC Blocks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Barb. Excited to be here.
Yeah, how's the show going for you so far?
It's been fantastic. I think I heard that there's over 4,000 registered attendees this year, which sounds like it's close to double what it was last year. Some of the content I've seen already this morning has been really spot on and sort of validates a lot of things that we're seeing in the industry right now, but it's nice to hear it from the likes of Microsoft and Google and CoreWeave and those 100%. Folks and just walking around and trying to soak up as much of this new technology as I can.
Yeah, it's a fantastic mix of organizations and people and leaders here, and I agree. I mean, it seems like it gets bigger every year. It was great when it was in Monaco. Now it feels like triple to me from 2 years ago. It seems quite a bit bigger. But let's start by talking about DC Blocks, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit.
So DC Blocks was founded in 2017 under the premise of second and third tier underserved markets required the same digital infrastructure that major markets had. And so the company started building facilities in Chattanooga and Birmingham, Greenville, and others throughout the Southeast. And one of the core convictions of DC Blocks is we really want to own the southeastern United States when it comes to digital infrastructure. We're staying very close to that geography. And so the company's kind of evolved with the industry somewhat. We continue to grow those small enterprise data centers, which people now refer to as edge data centers. We started to build a proprietary fiber network to connect them all. And then we started to grow the company in several other different directions. We got involved in the subsea cable business with our cable landing station in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And then we also got involved in dark fiber with a direct route from Myrtle Beach into Atlanta. And then we've also been building network nodes for a particular hyperscaler throughout the Southeast as well. And we've added 7 or 8 of those sites, I think, that we've got now. We announced some other new sites going up in Montgomery, Alabama, for example. Yeah. So excited about that. And then I think our biggest pivot is our hyperscale data center campuses. And so we've got a 200 megawatt campus located west of Atlanta in Lithia Springs. And we've also got a 215 megawatt campus east of Atlanta in Conyers. Both of those have been very active. We hope to have a couple of exciting announcements this week on both those sites. So things are going very well there. We've also got property in Charleston, South Carolina, and Richmond, Virginia. And again, trying to really stick to our focus of the Southeast. We're looking in a couple of projects in Florida right now, a couple of projects additional projects in Tennessee. So it's very exciting, and it's the Southeast is hot. We love all the markets. We've got great relationships with the states, the municipalities. We try to be very good stewards of the community in all the markets that we operate in, and another core conviction of the company. So exciting times.
Yeah, I mean, a lot. You're doing a lot.
Yes,
a lot of focus areas, a lot of expansion.
We're a busy shop right now.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You emphasized a bit around connectivity and edge proximity, and so tell us a little bit about how your approach, DC Block's approach to how you plan for this is influencing your customer adoption.
Well, I think it's the other way around. I think we've got a good track record with several of the hyperscalers in terms of both network and network nodes, and now getting into the hyperscale scale campuses. And so they're kind of telling us where to go. And so we get some of their roadmaps in terms of network nodes, and we get a lot of their fiber RFPs and fiber ideas and things like that. And we try to the extent that we can, do as much as we can. And, it's difficult to continue to grow right now. It's hard to find people. It's hard to find resources. Everybody's talked about the supply chain issues over the last 24 months. So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves either. And so I think we're a very transparent company. If we can do something, we want to do it great. And if we can't, we say thanks for the opportunity, but we'll move on. But that's
a hard thing to do.
It is a hard. Trust me, I'm a sales guy. I want to say yes to everything. So, but like I said, I think it's more being led by the customer versus us just planting flags in the ground.
Yeah, you mentioned hyperscalers, and I know I believe that they're pushing you, or as you said, you're sort of following the demand and working with your customers to support where they see the growth. Some of those areas are in secondary markets. And how are you sort of tailoring these partnerships to be able to meet those demands?
So, I just heard it in the panel keynote this morning about, land without energy is essentially worthless. And so I think why we've been successful with our scale sites in Atlanta is we were able to get attractive pieces of land with, I think, best-in-class utility contracts with both properties. So it's really no secret why we're having success there. It's literally marrying up to what all these hyperscalers are looking for in the markets they want to go. So as you start to go outside of these metro areas, and we definitely are seeing that trend. Obviously, there's sites going up in Alabama, sites going up in Mississippi. I guess CoreWeave just announced a 250 megawatt deal in North Dakota. I don't think we would go that far affray outside of our target geography of the Southeast, but there's plenty of sites that we've looked at throughout those, call it 7 or 8 sites in the Southeast, outside of the metros, still reasonably good access to connectivity. But I think the attractive thing is there's power, and it's an attractive price, and it's not like some of these states where the utility's delayed to 2032 or things like that. So that's kind of our game plan right now is trying to find these powered land deals.
Yeah, smart strategy.
Yeah,
and so I won't push you to tell us. You hinted that there may be some further updates coming about some of your expansion over the next few days. If you want to share, you can.
Yeah,
but otherwise,
I'm too superstitious.
Yeah, that's fine.
But no,
we'll watch for it.
It's going to be an exciting week or two for DC Blocks.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah. We'll watch for all of the updates, and hopefully we'll be speaking to you again soon.
Of course, we stay in regular contact with the JSA team.
Yeah. And so anything else that you're hoping for then over the course of the next few days here at the event?
It's a good question. I have an infrastructure background. I spent 20 years at Schneider Electric, so I can walk around this floor and I sort of geek out at the evolution of a lot of the electrical and mechanical infrastructure and just what we're even talking about. The 1 megawatt clusters of cabinets. I remember when a 4 kilowatt rack was high density, and so the evolution of that type of stuff's crazy. Just hearing from the hyperscalers in the keynote this morning about their viewpoints on, gaining capacity and their supply challenges, both relative to building their own facilities or leasing, and the increasing scale of these facilities, the dollars start to really matter, and you can't make mistakes. Yeah. And so the scrutinization of their capacity planning is I assume, front and center now, just with the scale they want to grow at.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me, Barb.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Likewise.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
You too.
And to our viewers, thank you again for tuning in to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress. Stay tuned as we continue to live stream throughout the event from leaders across the digital infrastructure space. Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025 in beautiful Cannes, France. I'm Barb Mitchell with JSA, and I am pleased to be joined today by Stefan Aspman, who's the president of Data Center Technologies, and Frank Pellegrino, who's SVP Sales and Strategy, both for Muners Group. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
How's the show going so far? It's a busy event here this week. Day one.
It is.
Yeah.
Crowded and a lot of good interactions.
Yeah.
We have a coffee stand upstairs, so
Oh,
please join us
I will
there.
be visiting that
Yeah, you
shortly.
should.
Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind, Stefan, starting to tell us a little bit about Muners and just what makes your company so unique.
Well, it's a tall order to talk about the uniqueness now, but I think on a serious note, it's been more development in this industry like the last 2 years compared to the last 2 decades. So a lot of things have developed, as you know, the last 2 years. And just product development wise, as an example, we have gone from developing products in the industry maybe 2-3 years, roadmaps, and now it has to be like half a year. So I think for us, that's been a competitive advantage, going from seeing customer-specific developments in the industry as an exception rather than the standard. And for us, that's always been the starting point. So we co-develop and we do joint R&D with the customers, all the way from R&D out to dedicated flow lanes. I think that kind of approach is still rather unique in the industry, and that has really helped us to grow.
You've had a lot. I mean, you speak of the industry is definitely growing. So, I mean, I think you're right. The last 2 years have seen more advancement in a lot of ways than the last 20. I think that you're absolutely right there. And how companies are keeping up with that is a challenge, right? But you've been doing a really great job, and you have some great success stories to share with us. I think on that front, you're expanding your portfolio. You have an acquisition to tell us about. You have new partnerships.
Sure.
A lot to cover. So do you want to start?
Yeah,
Frank?
no, I'd love to. I mean, for the last 2 to 3 years, we've been kind of on a strategic journey, and the focus has been going from what we came from, which was a niche player in data center cooling with a few, proprietary technologies, to transforming to more of a full solutions provider and on to becoming a global leader in data center cooling. And so we've had a couple of paths within that and how we're going to grow that way. We focused a lot on creating a full product portfolio. The biggest part of that has been the acquisition of Geoclima. It's a chiller company based in Italy. Very similar DNA to what we have in terms of being customer-centric and applications-focused, and being really focused on having a high-performing unit, right? Energy efficient, low power usage, more capacity on a smaller footprint. All those things make that a great technology. We've also looked at expanding our own products organically. We've added a CDU line we call the LCX, which is a very scalable, and it has redundancy built into that system rather than having to have redundant units. So it adds a lot of value for the customers. And we've partnered up too with a company like Zutacore, focusing on two-phase direct-to-chip cooling. It pairs really well with some of our core technologies, very low energy usage. So we're kind of using multiple paths to grow in this fast-moving industry. And we're also expanding our footprint a lot. We've got a new factory in Cork, Ireland. We just built a new factory in Virginia that we're expanding again. We're putting a very robust testing chamber in there for all sorts of client tests. So, and we're now looking to build out into APAC. So there's a lot of exciting things going on.
You're busy.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that, I mean, with all of these things you've been talking about and the focus that Muners has had, one of the core elements, I think, of your organization is you've really been driving innovation across the industry, and you're seen in that way. What are the market trends across the industry that are informing these decisions for you, that are driving that sort of mindset of innovation?
I think if you go beyond the obvious with the higher densities and all that, that obviously influences everything.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot about the chip design and how that actually influenced the return of temperatures and things like that. And so we try to stay very close to the developers of both, of course, from chip manufacturers all the way out to end customers. That's been key to us. And then just to build on what Frank said, I think that chilled water infrastructure has always been around, always been dominating. But now when companies have the opportunity to scale like they do, they very many of them, they fall back to a very proven technology that is chilled water infrastructure. So before, if you go back just 1 year ago, Muners didn't have that full offering. We had the indoor units, the cross, but we didn't have the chillers. So you could say we have kind of a half of a solution. So by adding geoclimate to the solution, of course, now we have more well-rounded, fully fledged offering. So that's part of it. And within that area, I'm happy to go into specifics, but there's tons of different tech development coming back to the development within the last 2 years, like specific silicons, challenging GPUs, energy source, nuclear, all of those things are coming into the industries. I think both in the actual heat rejection, but also in infrastructure in general in the industry is changing a lot right now.
Yeah. And so we're sitting here, it's, halfway through the year and we're just starting this show. What are you most looking forward to in the conversations you're going to have throughout the week, but also, for the remainder of this year with your organization? There's so much happening with your team.
There is.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I mean, we're very excited, of course, about the growth. We're growing in. I think you mentioned it, Frank. We have our first small footprint in Asia. That's a very exciting opportunity for us. It's kind of untapped potential. Munters as a group have presence in Asia, but data center technologies as a business area do not until now. So that's a very exciting part. And now going into the market with a much sharper portfolio, I mean, it gives us tons of opportunity, and the traction for geoclimate chillers is really great. So I think to bring that technology platform into the US from Europe is a very big thing for us, of course. So, I don't know if you want to add on to that, Frank.
No, it is. I think the biggest thing with innovation in my mind is you have to kind of redefine what innovation is now. We used to always just think about we're going to invent a new product or a new technology, but it's reinventing the entire way you work, being much more quick and agile and customer focused has been a huge focus now, and you have to have the entire organization lined up behind that, including talking. It's not even your customer anymore; it's your customer's customer. We didn't have to worry about chips 4 years ago with air cooling. Now you do. So you have to really redefine how your whole innovation cycle, and that's a big focus. But we're well positioned because I think customers that have had customer-focused R&D are going to be in a really good spot. With this, you have to be a lot more customer-driven.
And to add to that, because I think I misinterpreted your question a bit, it was more towards innovation. And I think two-phase is, both Cycle, our own proprietary solution, but also Pseudocore collaboration. I think that the temperatures and the rack densities we see now and the chip, chilled water, yes, it's going to keep dominating the industry, but there will be opportunities for two-phase because I simply think it's going to be needed. Yeah. So that's going to be a deal breaker also in some from edge applications, but also to more AI factory applications.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you both. It's been really a pleasure speaking. I know it's such a busy week, and very much appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to come and talk to us. So thank you.
No, thank you.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in again to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from Datacloud Global Congress. Stay tuned as we continue to bring news, stories, and innovations from leaders across our industry. Until next time.
How you doing? Dan Enright, United States Army, rank of captain. My military experience has definitely influenced my career and my working in the telecom infrastructure industry, I would say through four major pillars: planning, execution, results production, and no excuses. So I would say everything I've done from a military standpoint, from academics at West Point to athletics at West Point to U.S. Army active duty, whether it's going to Ranger School, National Training Center, readiness evaluations, everything's always geared around, can you plan? Then can you execute? Can you deliver? Can you deliver the goods, i.e. the results? And then if you don't get it done, no excuses. So anything short of a go on a patrol in Ranger School, and you're graded on planning execution there, a go, no go in your Ranger patrols. You either got it done or you didn't. National Training Center, same thing. After action review, either got it done, you graded out, or you didn't. Athletics, you either got a plus or a minus on your grade sheet on individual plays that you did. West Point Academics, you'd have your academic scores. If you took a test the following day, everyone would be listed on the outside of the professor's office with your grade. So you're with all your peers. It wasn't listed by your name, but you have your social security number and your grade. You knew exactly where you stood and were as far as ranking, how you performed against your colleagues, your peers. So really from a military standpoint, those things, planning, execution, results, production, no excuses, those are really 4 things I've taken from the military, 4 pillars that I've taken throughout my 37-year civilian telecommunications career. Telecom's only going to continue to grow with everything we do in society. You look at it, how we use our phones, how we use technology, how we conduct business, how there's automation, how there's edge computing, how there's software as services. Now, all this stuff we do, whether it's phones, whether it's video, whether it's smart technology, automated artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these trends, these technological trends, all require bandwidth. They all require telecommunications bandwidth. And really, from that standpoint, telecom, you're going to continue needing us vets to help build that network capacity to enable us as a society to utilize all these services, to continue to advance technology, to advance society, whether it's, academics, financial, social, economic, political, improving our overall global quality of life through technology. And again, you need the underlying telecommunications infrastructure to facilitate all that. So we're going to need the vets to, again, in my case, I'll continue to say, we need to be able to plan, execute, produce results, and get it done. So really, that's how I see a bright future for vets, for telecom, for vets in general, with everything going on from a technology trend standpoint right now.
My name's Dan Berenbaum. I'm currently the Chief Financial Officer of Bloom Energy, and a very long time ago, I was a lieutenant in the United States Navy. Well, there are so many things that I learned in the military: the leadership skills, the technical skills, the engineering skills, the determination to continue on despite difficult odds. But, I think about the digital infrastructure industry, this industry that we're in, and I think about my time in the military. These are both really team sports. What you learn in the military is how to make sure you surround yourself with great people, how you become a good teammate, how you look to others when you need help, how you help them when they need help, and how together the team is much stronger than any individual. When I think about this digital infrastructure industry, it's so important to the US and the world. And I think about the teamwork that we need to really drive this forward. I think that building great teams and being a great teammate, that's a skill I use every single day. So digital infrastructure is only going to grow more important to the world. The AI revolution, as it moves forward, is so important to America, so important to the world. And I think that veterans in general are driven by the mission there. They tend to be attracted to mission-driven industries. And when I think about infrastructure, any kind of infrastructure, physical infrastructure like roads and bridges, or digital infrastructure, energy infrastructure, this is very naturally a mission-driven type of business. And so you wind up with a lot of veterans being involved. at Bloom Energy, almost 10% of our US employees are veterans. And Bloom itself is a very mission-driven business. Our mission is to provide clean, reliable, affordable energy for everyone. It's that kind of mission at a place like Bloom and in an industry like digital infrastructure. As it expands with the AI revolution, you're naturally going to find veterans that bring that sense of mission, that sense of team, that sense of purpose to the industry and help to drive it forward.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we are coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025 in beautiful Cannes, France. I'm Barb Mitchell, and I am pleased to be joined by Scott Armel, who's the Executive Vice President of Global Portfolio and Business Units at Vertiv.
I appreciate
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How's the show going so far? We're saying it's sort of day one, sort of day two.
Quite a buzz here,
yeah.
and an incredible amount of energy. It's been really fun and exciting to kind of see everybody coalesce and come together.
Yeah, an amazing show. It grows every year, I think. And we were talking, you have a large contingent from Vertiv out at the event this year.
Very large contingent from Vertiv, both here officially and unofficially, kind of in the area. So huge amount of support, a lot of opportunity to have very interesting, groundbreaking customer conversations here.
Amazing,
as well. So very exciting.
And obviously, one of the big conversations that's happening, not just at this show, but it feels like every day, everywhere you listen, is around AI. And, when we think about it at the context of this show and the companies here, including Vertiv, it's really how AI is pushing demands on infrastructure and scaling growth demands. And so can you talk a little bit about how Vertiv is evolving your portfolio to meet these demands?
Yeah, absolutely. AI is really kind of the engine and the change agent here, which has been a really interesting development for the industry in general. Huge onset of the need for liquid cooling, huge change to just rack densities and densification of the data center and how we build data centers as a result of it, which is really exciting for us. In an industry that has been kind of steady and progressive for a long time, this has been a pretty big and significant inflection point. Vertiv's doing a lot. Obviously, we've gone very heavily into full capability around liquid cooling portfolio. So full complement of CDU development. We've kind of pioneered a new category we're calling trim coolers in terms of how we do heat rejection, how we do heat reuse at a facility level, and then a lot of, I would say, portfolio development around power infrastructure and the services that go with it. So combining low voltage switchgear, UPS, energy storage into more comprehensive solutions that can kind of lean forward and lean into the densification roadmap we're seeing from AI has been really where we at Vertiv are kind of pouring our development efforts.
One of the other areas I think we wanted to chat about a little bit is, I mean, there's challenges across the board, right? But you start to think about new and emerging markets and the unique challenges that may exist there. And I was wondering if you could share some insights on that.
We've obviously the U.S. gets a ton of attention around AI, and I think rightfully so. A huge, vast majority of the major development is happening there. But with some of inferencing coming to enterprise, kind of the onset of sovereign AI and some of these concepts, like we're seeing a lot of interesting deployments in new and unique areas in a lot of emerging markets. Typically, you're not going to have the same level of space, infrastructure, power availability, even trained people or trained skill in mass at the scale at which we need to build for AI and training type of data centers. That really plays into what we think is Vertiv's sweet spot around solutions, our service portfolio, our service kind of footprint of skilled tech and installers. That really allows us to take on more of development efforts and take on more of kind of factory level install of equipment, infrastructure, put it together in one place, deploy it to a site that allows us to maybe overcome some of the challenges we have with skilled labor, training, on-site man hours, and things like that can be more challenging in an area that isn't used to development at this scale.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. I mean, this is something that's again, we're talking about some pressure points across the industry. One of them has to be who is going to do all of this work, right? And where is the workforce? You mentioned at Vertiv, obviously you have a large team already. You have a skilled workforce in your organization, but how are you looking to expand that to meet the demands that you're feeling?
Good question, and there's a couple of different angles for us. I mentioned my service team and our install base. We have over 4,000 trained customer engineers and service technicians globally, which we believe is industry leading. But what skill sets we have today aren't necessarily the skill sets that are going to be needed to help us kind of develop AI-based data centers globally and in all locations that are needed. We've done a tremendous amount of, I'll say, skill set adjustment, portfolio adjustment, and training to make sure that as kind of liquid cooling becomes more predominant and more ubiquitous across data center infrastructure, we have the right people in the right places, trained in volume and in mass to be able to support customers in what they need to do. The other angle for us, I mentioned earlier, is our solutions portfolio. So prefabricated, modular solutions, hybrid types of data centers, as much content as we can take off of the site and bring back to a more controlled factory environment where we're putting together power modules, cooling skids, other infrastructure that is bundled, tested, prefabricated in more of a controlled environment and then deployed to a site, helps both reduce man hours on site, it helps improve quality and safety for some of these more complex construction jobs, and really helps us kind of deliver a more turnkey, aligned and integrated solution for our customers, which I think helps across the board and turns into a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. Amazing. Any final words we've stolen you away here just for a few minutes. What are you looking forward to for the remainder of the week?
No, it's fun to talk about just in the context of there's so much new and different happening in the data center space. There's so much attention both from within the industry and from outside the industry in terms of how AI is shaping not only kind of the data center and computer world, but broadly changing society. And kind of being at the forefront of that and being a critical enabler from a foundational and infrastructure perspective is a very cool position to be in. I'm really excited by kind of the energy and just the general buzz we have at a show like this and across the ecosystem we have of both customers and partners to really kind of challenge system norms and really change the way in which we do business as a data center ecosystem. It's just really cool to kind of look out some years and see where this is going and be a critical part of enabling that.
I absolutely agree. It's the place to be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. I know It's so busy. Appreciate you stealing away a few minutes to chat with us.
Certainly, it's my pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to JSA TV, where we continue to come to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress. Stay tuned until next time. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we are coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025 in beautiful Cannes, France. And we are joined by leaders across the digital infrastructure industry today who are telling us all sorts of news and innovation and trends that are impacting our industry. I'm Barb Mitchell, and I'm very pleased to be joined today by Atif Ansar, who's the executive chairman and co-founder for Foresight. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here, Bob.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. We're going to talk a little bit about you in a second, but if you wouldn't mind telling us and our audience about Foresight.
Absolutely. So my name is Atif. I wear two hats. I'm an academic at Oxford University, and I've done research there for well over 15 years. And then I co-founded Foresight in 2018. Schedule is king, and Foresight is a way of speeding up the process of building data centers using AI. So we use AI to help you build AI infrastructure, which is fantastic.
Right. And so amazing. So you studied at Oxford and now you teach at Oxford, and you of course have been really having a close-up look at large-scale projects in the data center space.
Absolutely.
And so can you talk about what you've observed over this time, the last decade or more, looking at this and what's impacting some of the expectations versus results as people deploy these projects?
Absolutely. So look, it's no secret the data center industry is absolutely on fire. It's growing rapidly. It accounts for nearly 10% of global construction volume. So definitely a boom industry within the larger construction environment. But like all other big projects, data centers face the same issue of the initial expectations being too optimistic. And as a result, delays and cost overruns have become really common. And that's particularly true as the supply chains have become more and more constrained, because everybody's building such large projects now with density of racks going up. The size of projects has gone from an average of 20 megawatts to closer to 100 megawatts. So with all of that, the risk, the financial risk of these delays and budget overruns has accumulated. What my research has shown is that people really need to think very carefully about their optimism bias, which is a psychologist's way of talking about when reality and expectation diverge. And what research showed was that even for very basic tasks, like going to grab a coffee, if I might say to you, Bob, hey, I'll be back from a coffee in 5 minutes, I'm very unlikely to be back in 5 minutes. I might be back in 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And in a data center environment, people promise 16 months, but they get 24 months or 32 months.
Right.
If they're very unlucky.
Right.
And these things are extremely costly, which our research is showing, which I'm happy to talk more about.
Interesting. And what do you see? Are there warning signs when these, I love this concept, by the way, but how do people plan for this? How do they predict it?
So that's a really good point. All projects are reported to be on track. So all projects look green on the outside.
Right.
But at least 9 out of 10 projects become red right before a big milestone like weather tight or ready for service. We call this problem the watermelon problem. I've spoken about this before. Things look green on the outside, but they're red on the inside or turning red on the inside.
Okay. Yeah.
So it becomes really difficult for leaders to separate watermelons from kiwis because it's unclear by looking at them or whether it's green on the outside and green on the inside or not. So people need X-ray machines, effectively,
Right.
to be able to X-ray through their project very quickly and be able to tell if it's got any warning signs. The single biggest warning sign of a project that has a lot of risk of going south is that the schedule is a mess or nobody can locate it. So if the CTO or the chief operating officer were to email the project team and say, hey, can I see your Primavera P6 schedule or Microsoft project schedule, they might get a kind of an alarm response back saying, why do you want this? So that's first warning sign that there's potentially more digging to do. A second warning sign is the reporting is very slow, partly because the data is such a mess and partly because the automation of that data, as a result, is quite poor. It takes people at least a week, 2 weeks, sometimes a whole month to report on real progress. And if you observe how they're reporting, you'll see that they're painting pictures in Microsoft PowerPoint or using Excel.
Right.
So that's another telltale warning sign that there's quite a lot of mess. A third issue is that the communication between the top line and the front line becomes misaligned. Executives at the C-level in the data center sector are very busy. They're spending their time talking to investors, talking to their customers. They don't necessarily have time to look at the operational side of things internally, so they end up delegating the front line to go build the projects. But that delegation, unfortunately, doesn't work. You need to have governance. It's not a trust thing. It's about making sure that there's a loop of learning between the front line and the top line. So a third warning sign would be that the two are not talking, or there's no business review, like a monthly or quarterly business review taking place. And as a result, delays are accumulating without the executives getting involved and trying to solve them before the problems become too big.
These are really important warning signs, I think. It's so, thank you for laying that out so clearly. I mean, just from a cost perspective, it can have an enormous impact, right? And I know that you at Foresight have done some research on this with STL partners. Tell us about your findings in that research and just the financial impacts of not catching those early warning signs.
Absolutely. So we partner with STL Partners, company based out of London, and we commissioned this piece of work as an independent research. So we did not influence their results. Obviously, as an academic, I was interested in both methodology as well as the academic rigor of it. So we interviewed, and they interviewed as independent researchers, over 15 senior executives as well as project directors across the data center industry. What they found is that for 1 month delay of a 60 megawatt data center, the total cost to the owner is over $14 million per month.
Wow, per month.
Per month of delay.
Wow.
That's lost revenue that's never going to come back.
Yeah.
That's standing army costs of people you have to pay for. That's SLA penalties or service credits that you have to supply in lieu of opening the data center.
Right.
Cost of capital, cost of inflation, so on and so forth. And that's a very conservative estimate for a 60 megawatt data center. What they also found is a 3-month delay is enough to wipe out the net present value. So from a private equity investor perspective, the return will get wiped out in just 3 months. So you have to take these delays extremely seriously and don't feel embarrassed about them. It happens to all teams. Take them as a learning opportunity and create a culture which almost celebrates surfacing bad news early rather than brushing things under the carpet.
Yeah, so interesting and so important. And I can just, I mean, from an organization perspective, investor perspective, market perspective, all of these things, this is really important learning. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much
Pleasure.
for sharing. Yeah.
With pleasure.
Anything else any final words? I know we're sort of day one here of the show. Do you have any exciting things that you're most looking forward to for the remainder?
So look, I've diagnosed a problem, which is this issue of the watermelons, right? Projects get reported as being green, but they turn red. So what I'd like to talk a little bit about is the good news around what's the solution. And so these things are not as out of control as one might fear. So you can gain control as a team. And, I'd like to share 3 tips for that. Tip 1 is get your schedule in order. The schedule has to be a collaborative effort, and it's got to be exposed to sunlight. It's the best form of antiseptic.
Right.
For the executive, as well as all the delivery partners, the contractors, the prime, the MEP contractors, everybody to have very clear visibility in a workshop, for example. Then pair that human process with artificial intelligence technologies like Foresight to provide that rapid feedback and visibility, the simulation information to facilitate that better human communication. Ultimately, people build faster, but AI is the amplifier that can make that process a lot quicker. My third tip would be to put in place better governance. So sometimes the frontline shy from engaging with the bad news with the C-level and just encouraging them not to do that. But equally, the top line, the C-level have to institute a monthly business review and making sure that they're getting truthful reports so they can help their team, support their teams. And the ultimate kind of tip would be to really question greens but support reds. So it's the opposite of what people do.
Right.
If you see greens on your report, be very suspicious.
Right. Why is it green? Is it really green?
Is it really green?
Yeah.
And if you see reds, really throw all your support towards them and help them, partly to build the
a very
culture
good point. Yeah.
of encourage them to come up with the reds earlier when you collectively can do something about it.
Right. It's not. There's no use having them on the inside where you can't see them.
Exactly.
Bring them into the light.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having
It's been a pleasure. This has been a very interesting conversation, and I want to come audit one of your classes one
With
day.
pleasure.
at Oxford. Thank you very much. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in again to JSA TV, where we'll continue to come to you live today from Datacloud Global Congress. Until next time, stay tuned.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sophia Gump, and I work for Nova Data Centers as their environmental SME. So I did not graduate with the intention of going directly into the digital infrastructure industry. I think it rather found me instead. But I knew from the get-go that I always wanted to be in an industry that is future-oriented and growing rather than at a standstill or a decline. I also think that the digital infrastructure industry stems from the bigger picture of the technology industry, which has always rather been male-dominated. And so I really have a goal of hoping my presence in this industry allows and inspires younger generations to continue in my footsteps and know that they belong here. So I would say that the most important aspect would be to advocate for yourself. I think a lot of women have a tendency to undermine themselves, especially early on in their career. And I would say that it's significantly important to do the opposite and to speak your voice and share your opinion and your knowledge. This industry specifically is moving really fast, and it's technical, it's high stakes, and it's evolving constantly. And to thrive here, you have to be confident in your work. Surreal, just because this industry is completely exploding, and it seems like it is just expanding at a rapid pace. And
Hi, I'm Ricky Wells. I work for T5 Data Centers in business development. Earlier in my career, I was really just attracted to technology, and that led me to the telecom space, which gave me some exposure to data centers. Over time, you witness the evolution of technology and see that its impact and the role that data centers play in that larger picture. And I just found that really interesting and decided to focus my time and energy on data centers alone. And that's taken me to diverse roles, and certainly has been a journey to balance a career and a family is always a juggling act, whether you're male or female. So finding the right roles and organizations that are supportive of kind of who you are in and outside the workplace, that's certainly been a challenge. And I've had a mix of positive and negative experiences like everyone else. Overall, though, I love what I do. I find the industry a really fun place to be and really value the relationships that I've made along the way. So I'd say three things. Number one, stay curious. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Learn everything that you need to be successful in your role, and then learn as much as possible about everyone else's roles in the broader ecosystem along the way. Number two, I'd say build relationships, not only with your coworkers, but with as many people in the industry as possible. There are amazing people everywhere. Number three, be adaptable. The change is constant, and you've got to stay flexible and willing to learn new things. It's fascinating with the rise of new technologies, and then you've got the constraints in many areas, whether it be people, power. I just think it's fascinating to see everybody coming together and trying to sort these things out. It used to be where nobody knew what data centers were, and we really just kind of kept off the radar, and now it's mainstream. I mean, I see news articles every day. And before that, just didn't exist. So it's just a really interesting time to be here.
My name is Regina Lopez. I'm VP of Finance at Kio Data Centers. At the beginning, it was merely luck. My background is in real estate. Although I had seen data centers before, I was never really involved in the industry. However, when I first got into Kio, I started learning a lot about the industry. And right now, I wouldn't think of myself anywhere else, to be honest. It's super exciting. It's a growing industry, and I think it's the equivalent of being in the big .com boom in the early 2000s. I would advise women to not be scared. It is still a male-dominant industry.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of Datacloud Global Congress 2025. We are talking to leaders across digital infrastructure about key stories, trends, news, innovation, all things impacting digital infrastructure. So I am pleased to be joined. I'm Barb Mitchell, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Sienna Sassan, who's the Global Enterprise Marketing Manager for Access Communications. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, it's always a pleasure. And let's just jump right in if we can. I know that our viewers are familiar with Access Communication, but of course you're a security provider to some of the world's largest hyperscalers.
Yes, that's right.
A significant role for you to be playing as an organization, an important one. I want to lead in by asking the question of, given this importance, why is it that some people are not recognizing that how critical physical security is to conversations around critical infrastructure?
Yeah. So I think in this space where we're at in the data center industry, I definitely think it doesn't get as much attention as it should, since the global data center expansion is really reshaping the very security as it is, since it's really not anymore about just protecting data. It's about protecting digital sovereignty. It's about protecting economic resilience and the future of intelligence itself. So I definitely think it should be there on higher up on the agenda at this type of shows and in the industry in general, because due to there's so many risks associated with a potential failure of any kind.
So let's talk about those risks. You know, and maybe people don't realize what they are, but can you talk about what risks specifically are facing the data center industry?
So they are from a security perspective, they are multidimensional. Now that there's a new world order rising. Now I sound so dramatic,
Yeah.
but literally. Data centers are really a part of digital infrastructure. So it's as critical as power plants or telecom towers, and they are therefore really prime targets for attacks like cyber attacks or vulnerable to insider type of threats, let's say, especially in politically sensitive regions or countries, let's say, that lag AI infrastructure, that find themselves dependent on foreign digital infrastructure, or data center operators. So in that case, the question arises, who controls your compute, for example? And also, There's risks as supply chain risks, since in this industry you have components that are rare, so that can create like geopolitical choke points, for example. So the risks are really huge. It's like a wide spectrum, and just to give you a few examples of them there.
So when people hear this and they're thinking, okay, well, now I know there are all these risks I need to be thinking of. What do I do about it? I mean, do you have suggestions for some solutions?
So when it comes to, first of all, partnered up with trusted, like strategic partners, trusted technology partners. I would say that's like number one. And then again, I feel like governments and private data center operators need to really treat data center as critical infrastructure and implement zero trust architecture and have strict access control in every level. And we see, for example, a lot of micro or edge data centers popping up in remote locations. These facilities can be vulnerable to threats like, let's say, they have limited or weaker perimeter defense. So looking into that, investing in stronger perimeter defense. But then it can also be like a sabotage. Doesn't need to be high tech. It can be cable cut or a localized power failure that can have massive and triple effects on that, for example. And so I will say overall, it's about integrated physical and cyber security with smart surveillance and AI powered with the AI powered analytics, not only for security, but also for operation efficiency, for business intelligence, knowing at all time what's going on at your site, seeing the patterns, being proactive in your surveillance, getting those notification, real-time events, and being ahead of something before it actually happens. But now I feel like coming into that, we will touch upon a whole different topic, and I think we can pause there and save it for next time.
Yeah, there's always so much to talk about,
Yes,
isn't there?
exactly.
And yeah, we appreciate you taking a few minutes from. I know it's a busy show. It's really fantastic. Do you have anything especially that you're most looking forward to for the remainder of the week here at Datacloud?
We're so happy to this year. We are joining the event with in the pavilion with Digital Infrastructure Island with a lot of partners there. So we're meeting people in the ecosystem, getting to know, networking with people. It's always great. So pass by and we talk more about smart surveillance.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great way to end this conversation, and we appreciate it. We look forward to speaking with you again down the road,
Thank you
not
so
not
much.
too far into the distant future.
Great.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in again to JSA TV. That's it today for our live coverage, but come back and join us again tomorrow morning, where we'll be coming to you live on day 2 of Datacloud Global Congress. Until next time,